I don't know why I always get a little nervous with Q&A videos, but here we are. I try and do one of these every 6 to 12 months, answer some of your guys' questions that you ask me on YouTube and Instagram. It's a nice, beautiful, sunny day out. Spring isn't here yet, but it's coming and there's some birds chirping, so it's a perfect day for this. Most of these questions will be about reselling. At the end, I'll also throw in a couple questions that you guys asked about real estate, YouTube, and personal. All right, reselling questions. Is it reasonable to believe I can make $8,000 to $10,000 per year as a part-time side hustle? 100% yes. But I think going into it with some realistic expectations would be helpful. Meaning, if you're someone like me and you're going to sell predominantly women's clothing or clothing in general, if you want to get a decent return on items, they might sit for a little bit. I think sometimes I get comments from people saying, oh, this didn't sell in over a month and, I'm really frustrated. Or, oh, I can't believe you held on to something for 6 months. It took 6 months to sell. Most of my items take on average 3 to 6 months to sell. And I have some items that don't sell in 4 years and I have to donate, which is what a project I'm working on right now. Or I have some items that sell in 10 minutes. So, and it's always kind of a hodgepodge. Like there's some things you can look at like sell-through rate and try and factor that in to see how quickly something might sell. But at the end of the day, most clothing can take a little bit of time if you want kind of the average or a good return. So if you price things lower than everyone else, it might sell quicker, but then you're going to get less of a return. So if you are wanting to go into something, I would say the first thing, start reselling with things that you get for free, things out of your own house, things you get from family and friends. Then you're investing the time and you're learning to see if you like the process of reselling, because a lot of the grunt work is maybe not for everyone. It's, taking pictures, listing items, pulling inventory and shipping items. Like a lot of that stuff might not be something that you want to do. And if you've invested a lot of time on thrift trips and buying stuff, then not only have you invested time, but you've invested money. So I would say if you are willing to spend 10 hours a week and spend a couple months investing a little bit of that time, and you like it, I would say you could definitely make the $8,000 to $10,000 per year as a part-time side hustle. I think it's very complimentary because for the most part, the only thing that's kind of strict on time is shipping on time. Other than that, you've got a little flexibility on when you do the other types of work. So good luck if you're just starting out and keep on keeping on. I don't know. This is why I hate Q&As. I say stupid stuff and it's like, why did I don't know. All right. Number 2, have your sales decreased recently? Yes and no, not really. I mean, every year I feel like my sales aren't doing great. And then when I end of the year, I'm doing tax stuff and I'm like, oh, it actually was pretty similar to the past couple of years. I've been reselling like many of us, I had some years I was building up my inventory and building up my business, and then COVID hit and things kind of went a little awkward. And then, bouncing out of that, we have some changes in the market that I think might create changes in the market and changes in my business. And I've also done a lot of things outside of reselling that has forced me to not spend as much time with reselling. And that is a good thing for me. But overall, my sales usually are kind of all over the place. Like it's not consistent month to month for me. But I've gotten used to that. And I do have other income streams that kind of balance it out. So I don't think they've decreased dramatically. I think a lot of the decrease has been on months that I don't list a lot. Like I basically didn't list for all of January. And so, my sales kind of tanked a little bit during that time and even in February. But that was my own kind of doing. So I really haven't tried to go hard on increasing. Like I'm not here to be a full-time reseller that wants to make, $10,000 a month in net profit by flipping items. That's just not what I've ever wanted. I don't want employees. I don't want high overhead costs of like renting out space and stuff like that. So for me, I've been at a pretty consistent place and it hasn't dramatically changed so far. But I anticipate a little bit of a downturn, especially this year with having more of my focus on other things. But yeah. All right. Do I think Posh Lives are causing a decrease in your sales? So it was kind of the same person, but two separate questions that I broke it out to. So I do think Posh Lives and whatnot have impacted things. Like I said, I think those are two things that people are just shifting away that they're shopping. We've always had things where like auctions on eBay and different ways that people like to bargain shop. We've had people doing Instagram sales for a while. And so it's not that it's a completely new way of shopping, but I do think there's an impulsive aspect. So people might, and they're also being pushed on platforms a lot right now and pushed by people on YouTube and social media to go try like, hey, you get $10 credit if you come check out my show. And then it gets people who maybe were just browsing shopping, now doing more of the impulsive live shopping. So I do think it has changed the market a little bit, but if you don't want to do that, I think you can still be a reseller and not do any live selling, because I have no plans to, and I'm happy if anyone is finding success on it. I think in the beginning it was frustrating because there was so much pressure from people to sign up and try things, and it's not for everyone. And I think that it's balanced out a little bit. You kind of have your different camps now. I hope everyone in general just has good sales and has fun doing it and isn't pressured to do things they don't want to do, because at the end of the day, you want this to be kind of a long-term thing, hopefully, and you want to enjoy it, because why else would we want to be self-employed if we didn't enjoy it? So yeah, I think it's affected sales as a whole, or these markets wouldn't be shifting focus on it, but there's still going to be a lot of people like me who don't want to sell or shop that way. And I just hope people are buying sincerely for good reasons and getting some good deals and, not getting in over their heads. So, all right. Do I have an assistant to help me? No. The only thing that I would say helps me, so I don't have a spouse. I do not have an employee. I do not have anyone shipping for me, because I know there are those types of services. I don't have really anything. The only thing that helps me is I do have a service that shares my items on Poshmark and sends out offers on Poshmark. Other than that, I do everything myself manually. I do things like in bulk on eBay, but yeah, I do not have any help. And I don't think it's bad if you do have help. I just think that, my whole frustration has been sometimes, it's kind of, I'll see, and this is just my own take, I'll see someone and they're killing it. And then I'm like, oh, well, they have an employee, they have a housekeeper, they have a spouse, they have all this help around them. And it's like, okay, I'm just trying my best. And keep in mind, I could have help if I wanted to, but that is a life that I used to live, was managing people and things, and I don't want that life. And I think if I had a partner that was a reseller, I would really not want to do anything with them. Like, I would want my separation from them at times. Like, I don't think I would ever want it to date or marry a reseller. Yeah, and trust me, people ask if I'm dating anyone or if I want to get married. That's every Q&A question that'll be at the end with personal stuff. but yeah, so I don't know. I think I don't know. I think it's worth trying out. I dabbled in having a part-time employee, and she was taking photos for me. And then I realized that that's actually not something I mind doing. And it actually wasn't really saving me all that time, because I was still having to drop off the stuff, pick up the stuff. It was still like, there were things that were missed. There were photos that weren't correct and items that, so for me, it just wasn't worth it. And it's not why I'm self-employed. To be truly self-employed, I want to be completely on my own. So, what is your favorite music? And do I listen to it while doing reselling work? So I have realized I love music. I love music when I'm out working out, like walking the dog, hiking. I like music at the gym. I like music when I'm driving. I have learned that music, I have to kind of be in a different state of mind when I'm doing certain work. So I can't listen to music with words if I'm listing, because then it distracts me. And when I'm photographing, I have to have something that keeps me focused, like keeps me going, because I get distracted very easily. And so I've been doing a lot more podcasts while photographing and a lot more music when listing. And typically, depending on what I'm doing, like when I'm out thrifting, I'm typically listening to something to like amp me up. So it'll be much more, I can't even go into what kinds of music I listen to, because I listen to a lot of crazy stuff. But like when I'm out thrifting, I'm listening to a lot more rap, house, drum and bass, that kind of stuff, just really high tempo kind of stuff. A lot of bass. I really like a lot of bass. And then when I'm maybe listening at home, I'm listening to more classical and jazz and stuff because I want it to be a little bit more mellow. And then podcasts, I've been asking for podcast recommendations just to get like try new ones, but those have just been great because I can put on an hour podcast and I know I'm going to work for an hour. So it's almost like setting a timer, or 2-hour podcast. And yeah, I'm trying to think of some of my favorites. I really like Lex Friedman. I really like the Huberman Lab. I really like some of the NPR ones, some of the money ones, like finances, boring stuff. I've learned that I really like the stuff that forces me to kind of learn while I'm doing something, because that distracts me the most. I tried listening to some that are a little bit more chatty or gossipy, and I get bored and I lose my focus. So, but I mean, there's so many podcasts out there. And yeah, but those are the main ones I listen to. All right. What is my all-time favorite brand to pick up? So I feel like I get asked this a lot, and there's not really all-time favorite brand. I mean, there are definitely brands that I do better with, and they're just different variables. Like I'm trying to think, like I love Patagonia, but I love Patagonia outerwear. I will pass on it most of the time if it's not an outerwear piece, because I've learned by being burned. Like it could be a cute Patagonia dress and it's priced, $8.99 at my thrift store, but I know it's probably not going to sell for much, and it's probably not going to sell very quickly. So unless it's like an extra large or something like that, where it's a good size and it's priced appropriately, like maybe at the bins, I pretty much skip on Patagonia unless it's outerwear. So, or Birkenstock. I love, like things that I like to wear is what I like to source. Like I love picking up Birkenstocks, but most of them are thrashed, so I leave most of them behind. But if they're in decent condition, I get excited to pick them up. And if they're my size, I keep them. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some brands out there that I would love to find again. Two that I'll name off the top of my head: Jenny Kane. I've sold her a few times and I don't find her often enough. I love her stuff, and it's just, yeah. The second one would probably be Viore. I've only found that once and I was so excited. I actually found it a second time, but it was flawed, so I left it. But those are two brands that I would love to find more often. And yeah. All right. What are some brands that are still on my bucket list? I actually thought of this, a couple of them, because I never remember. So my number one bucket list item, none of these are really high dollar. Like I don't really care too much about the super high-end designer stuff, because most of those I find they're fake, and I don't really want to deal with too much authenticity issues. Like I mean, of course, if I find some real Chanel or, something like that, I'm going to do my best to try and identify and maybe pay to have it authenticated and that kind of stuff. But, most of it is fake that I find, and that doesn't really get me excited, because then I worry about scams and, all sorts of issues. I get excited about the items that'll sell for $100. That's my excitement zone. $100 to $200. I'm like, yes, jumping up and down. But then some of them, like birdies. I've never found birdies. I've seen everyone find birdies. I've found teaks. I found, what's that other one? What's the other flat that I found a bajillion times? Those, those are still fun to find, but I have never found birdies. And I'm sure they're probably going to sell for like $50, $60, but it's on my bucket list. And I'm like, one of these days I'm going to find birdies, hopefully. But yeah, so birdies is on my list. One I just found this last week that was on my bucket list, and it's because I see it in REI, and I just think it's a really colorful, fun brand. Again, probably in that like more 50, 60 range, but it's called Tehachapi, and I just found it finally. So I just checked that off my bucket list. I wrote this list before I found it, so it's still there. And then I always say this, Arc'teryx outerwear. I have found Arc'teryx 2 times t-shirts. 3 times. 2 t-shirts. Do I have 2 I think I have 2 t-shirts in stock, And I think I sold one plaid button front shirt that was men's very quickly. I've never found an outerwear piece for Arc'teryx, and that is high up on my bucket list. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have found a lot there. Like I said, like Viore, Jenny Kane, I don't find them enough. I would love to find them more, but yeah. All right. This one I think is always fun, but probably you all can relate. Brands that you used to get excited to find that are no longer thrilling. That's most brands for me, because I think in the beginning, you are going to be so excited the first few times you find Free People and Lululemon and, you know, some of these brands that are actually relatively common for a lot of us. But in your experience as a new reseller, you're going to be so thrilled to find them. So, I mean, yeah, so the Madewell, I used to get excited about that. Nowadays, I mean, I pass on it more than half the time. Probably 75% of the time I pass on it. And the other 25%, it's either got to be really cheap, and I know I'm just like, or it's a really great size or a great style, more current style. There's probably like, you know, once every 6 months, I'll find a Madewell piece that I get truly excited about. And it is a brand that I find multiple times on pretty much every thrift trip. So, you know, it's, I think it's common and it's cute. I have nothing against it, but I'm definitely not thrilled about that one. Everlane has really disappointed me. I mean, just because like these were brands that I was genuinely so excited about in the beginning, and Everlane I really like, but the comps have just gone downhill with most items. So, you know, again, I pass on it a lot, and that's just sad. So, but there are still some Everlane pieces that are true gems. Like if you find that really great jacket that's a current style, like, you know, you can still do well with some of these brands. It's just few and far between for me personally. Free People, again, I mean, that's probably one of the most common out there that people get excited about in the beginning. Thrift stores know them. And maybe that's why I don't, you know, there's so many people that know about it. Unless it's at the bins, I won't pick it up. I won't pay too much for it. I did just pick up a Free People that I was kind of excited about because it was a jacket and kind of unique, but it hasn't sold in a couple weeks. It probably won't sell immediately, but I don't know. I mean, I still think Free People's cute, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Johnny Was, I still like picking up, but it's gone down as well a little bit. I'm still going to pick it up. I still think the majority of items can do fairly well, but it's not like it used to be, and I do find it a little bit more regularly. So, who else? Vince, Theory, Lululemon. I used to get excited about those. You know, Vince and Theory are higher retail. Usually good quality, usually good materials, but they just don't really flip well for me. Again, all of these I pick up, just I don't get really that excited about them anymore. And then Patagonia, if it's a non-outerwear piece, I almost always leave it behind. So, all right, what percentage of the time do you plan to devote to each income stream? So I didn't know where to put this question because it's not specific to reselling, but this is a reselling channel. So how much time do I plan to devote to reselling? I think I've talked about this ever since kind of sharing. I haven't really considered myself full time in a while. Because of my other activities, it just kind of depends. Like I've been trying to catch up on reselling for the last month because I basically didn't list for a month. And so I feel like I've done quite a bit of reselling in the last month, but I've decreased the amount that I'm aiming for to list. And I'm trying to get caught up on some organization stuff like my inventory. And so some of that reselling stuff isn't necessarily listing. It's just doing some projects that I've been wanting to do. But that's also because I don't have any current escrows with real estate. So I've got a little bit of time right now, but you know, that could change in the next few weeks where I get an escrow open or maybe two. So because real estate is so inconsistent, right now I'm just, hey, if I have time to resell, I'm going to resell. I don't devote as much time with YouTube on this channel as I once did. But between all three of my channels, I feel like I still spend quite a bit of time making videos. So, you know, I don't think it's an even third split on each of them. I think it just varies by week to week and, you know, what my requirements are for that week. But I would say my goal is kind of a third, as a whole. I would say I spend the least amount of time on YouTube. And that is because I don't do a lot of editing, and I do one video a week on this channel. So, and then I do like one or two on my other channels each month. So yeah. Okay, so this is a eBay question. They're asking free returns versus paid returns. Why did I choose paid returns? And are there any top rated seller advantages? So if you aren't on eBay, basically you can allow returns, not allow returns. If you allow returns, you can do buyer pays for the return, or you do free returns, meaning you eat the cost. And if you do free returns, there is something where you could get top rated status, top rated plus or something. And there are some slight financial and there's some slight advantages. I'll try and remember to link something down below that kind of talks about some of that, because I think that you can read about it. I don't even know all the advantages. I do not do free returns. That would mean that you would have to pay for the shipping both ways. So you would have to refund them for the shipping that they paid to get the item, and then you have to pay for the shipping to get the item back. Some people swear by it. I don't see the advantage, and I allow returns. But if the buyer wants to try it on and pay for the shipping to them and pay for the shipping back, I don't lose anything except the item is missing for a few weeks. It's fine with me. I understand that not all the things are going to fit. And I would rather personally, if I was going to buy something and I didn't know if it was going to fit, I would rather eat a little bit of the cost, be able to return the item, get most of my money back. So that's just me. But I personally think one of the reasons I buy more on eBay than I do on Poshmark is because I want the ability to return if it doesn't fit. Unless I'll buy stuff on Poshmark if I know it's going to fit. Like I bought duplicates of certain items in my closet. And for me, that's just peace of mind. I mean, I wouldn't want to buy from a retailer if they're like the final sale where it's like, you can't return this. Now, I guess it's a little different because we're resellers. We could always flip something if it doesn't fit us, but it's comfort. But I don't mind whatever you want to try. Anyone out there that says you have to do it a certain way, I think is kind of wrong for saying there's only one way. I've said that a million times on most things. Just whatever you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable doing free returns and you think there's a financial advantage for you to do it that way, then try it. But if you start paying out a lot of returns, try paid returns and see how that changes. I personally would not do no returns on eBay because then you might get people who lie just to be able to return it. And then you have dings on your account and it can turn into kind of a nightmare. So I don't mind returns. Before I get into the rest of the questions, I'm just going to take a quick pause for the sponsor of today's video, which is Green Chef. All right, my meals this week. I made this one yesterday, had it for lunch and dinner. The cheese was so delicious. This I'm going to make later this week, which I'm really excited about. This is what I'm going to make for lunch today and probably have the leftovers for dinner because it's just that kind of day. You all know how much I love Green Chef. It is literally the highlight of my week while working at home for so many reasons. I love cooking personally, but I get bored with my typical recipes. So Green Chef keeps it interesting by introducing me to new ingredients and flavorful dishes that support a healthy lifestyle. The best part is it saves me so much time by delivering everything to my doorstep, and most meals are ready to eat in less than 30 minutes. I also love that I don't waste as much food because they send just the right amount of ingredients for each meal. If you haven't heard me talk about Green Chef before, it is a CCOF certified organic company, and they have options for every lifestyle. They have keto, paleo, vegan, vegetarian, fast and fit, Mediterranean, and gluten-free. I personally tend to mix and match my meals each week, but usually I pick a lot of the fish and Mediterranean meals just for personal preference. So when you're ready to try it for yourself, you can use my code COMMONTAGS60 to get 60% off plus free shipping. So you can go to greenchef.com for more details. You can also look at the description down below to see all the details as well. This meal is absolutely one of my favorites because it has a lot of veggies. It's got shrimp, it's got egg. It's basically kind of like a egg roll in a bowl, but it's got this shrimp and bacon and delicious sauce. So I highly recommend this one. I honestly haven't had a Green Chef meal that I don't like. But again, I just like the variety and not having to think about it. So here's my finished plate. I always love that it matches the photo. I also have my leftovers for later in the day. Big thank you to Green Chef for continuing to support this channel. I'm going to chow down. Okay, back to reselling questions. Any budgeting for inventory tips or general financial management when it comes to reselling? So I would say, I think I said it in the beginning that if you're just starting out, I would say try reselling with free stuff for a while. Like a month, just give it a month with just selling stuff out of your own closets in your own house or free from family. It might not be the greatest stuff, but you can at least understand the process, understand how to learn to price things and ship things. And you're not really investing too much money at that point. And then you can just learn, oh, wow, I really hate this, or, oh, wow, this isn't bad, and I want to go out and start buying stuff. But I think there's going to be a lot of bad buys in the beginning, and at least everyone I know did a lot of bad buys in the beginning. So, there's just going to be an investment up front. I am not a finance professional, and, anytime I hear a reseller giving advice on something they're not qualified for, we all have life experience, and I can just say in my experience, inventory, I think sometimes it's worth paying up for, but there's a lot of times I pay for something a decent amount and then, wow, it wasn't the best buy. So personally, I really did not pay up for most things for a while until I really got comfortable with reselling and knowing brands and knowing what was actually how to look up comps, see if it was worth paying up for. And I've made my fair share of mistakes and they cost me financially. So I think that easing into what you're paying for items is really good. Also, just because someone online is doing something doesn't mean it's going to be greatest for you. Some people like to do wholesale. Well, if you really like to thrift, but then you start buying wholesale because someone seems to be doing well with it online, then that's taking away the one thing you like, which is the thrifting part. So, or things like getting an employee. Is that really going to save you time? How are you going to measure it? How are you going to manage it? Is it worth it? Or can you just find more discipline in your day? So there's just a lot of things that I think other people do that might not work for you. And unfortunately, some of it you might have to learn on your own by trying it out. But I would also say just if something's not working, just change course, because, it's a lot of this does come at a cost, whether it's that you're not getting great stuff to sell, or you're buying things at too high of a cost, or you're holding on for things for too long because you're wanting a maximum return and you're not just willing to take offers. For me, I would say if people need to accept more offers, stop being so stringent on like, oh, someone said they only accept 10% off offers. It's like, I wouldn't be able to run a business like that. There's no consistent buying process for buyers, and there's no consistent selling process for sellers. And so I think there can create a lot of confusion. And for me, one of the things I've really tried to do is just be more mindful of trying to accept offers, because, how long has it been listed? How many people are interested in this item? Go and relook up comps. If you're not sure about something, because maybe when you priced it, you were, tired and watching Netflix and distracted and priced too high. So I think there's overall build up to paying up for things, get some experience under your belt, 6 months to a year under your belt. And, try to figure out what works for you and not do what other people are telling you to do. And none of that is black and white. That's like a super gray answer, but that's just because I don't think what works for me is going to work for someone else, and vice versa. So, all right, another reselling question, and then I'll move on to some other ones. Did I find bin number 2? So I did a day in the life video a month ago, 2 months ago, and I lost a bin, like an entire bin. And then in that video, I did not say if I ever found the bin, and I did not find the bin that day. I did not find it for like a month, and then I finally found it. So I did find bin number 2, technically. I found the items at least. Yeah, so, I mean, I'm human. I don't know how I lost an entire bin, other than what I think happened was when I was doing inventory. I think maybe it was sitting somewhere and I mixed it in with other inventory that I was putting away. And because I always have kind of a transitional inventory that isn't in my spreadsheet yet, but is done with a video, and they just kind of sit in bins. So I think it got mixed up that way, but I'm human. I found the stuff and I found the missing item, and it was too late, but it is what it is. All right, some real estate questions. So the first question, would you say real estate is a good complement to reselling? Yes and no. I've actually gotten a lot of people comment that they've tried real estate in the past, or they currently do real estate, and many of them said that they tried it, they hated it, and they quit it. And I would say my understanding is most, like, I don't know, 90 something percent of real estate agents quit within the first 2 years. Partly it's a couple reasons why. It's a little bit of an investment, not compared to college, but a little bit of investment of time and money up front to get licensed. And then you have to pay fees every year. So unless you're selling at least a couple houses a year, you're basically just giving away your profits and fees for most of us. So you've got broker fees, you've got association fees, you have MLS fees, you have lock fees. So there's just a lot of fees just that you have to maintain. Like every year I have to pay $1,800 just to maintain my license and be an active agent. And then on top of that, I pay a percentage of all my commission to my brokerage. And that's all variable. I mean, some girl sent me a message and she said she was paying 50% of her fees to her brokerage, which that seems a little high. You can pick your brokerage. You can leave when you want. You're not signing like a lifelong contract. So I think the typical industry standard is about 30%. The more qualified you are, the less help you need. You might be able to negotiate that down to 20%. I think some of the like top agents at firms, sometimes they're 10, 15%. But most of the people I know started at 30%. So that means 30% of their commission goes to their broker, and possibly some things like desk fees and stuff like that. So it's lucrative if you have a way to get leads. If you don't have a way to get leads, it's pretty much going to be a waste of time unless you really like knocking on doors and cold calling, or unless you have social media. And so, for me, I don't do any cold calling. I don't reach out to family or friends. I don't, pound the pavement, knock on doors. I strictly just do some social media, and that's how people find me. But not everyone will have that ability to do that because not everyone's going to be able to do social media successfully. And some people take social media advice from people who don't give the best advice. Like I'm a firm believer that don't just throw anything up on, I'm shaking the tripod. Don't just throw up anything on social media. Like build a presence that you're proud of, but also it's not all about looking good. I think that's a common mistake in all forms of social media, whether it be reselling or whether it be real estate, is so many people just want to look cool and look good. And they're more focused on that than what are people going to click on? What are people actually interested in? Are people interested in, when they're looking for houses, how many homes you've sold? Or are they interested in having a personality match and feeling confident that you're going to be trustworthy and honest by putting up content that gives them an idea of who you are? So, there's a lot of different tactics out there. There's a lot of cheesy real estate people, most of them. And fortunately, I have a lot of good ones at my office that are not so cheesy. I'm also very small town real estate versus a big city. It's very different worlds, but yeah, I mean, it's a great complementary thing to reselling, because when I'm busy with real estate, I can still just kind of linger with reselling and vice versa. I can go a little bit harder on reselling when real estate's quiet. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing both at the moment. But I don't think everyone's personality is suited for it. And I do think that the real estate agents that do real estate 100%, like that's their entire income, I personally wouldn't want that, because there's so many quiet times. I mean, you might have a really great month and then you might not have a sale for a few months. So anyways, I could ramble on about this forever, but I do think it's complimentary if you have a way to generate leads. And if you don't have a good solid plan to generate leads, it probably will be a waste of time and money and frustration. And a lot of people don't like the things like cold calling and stuff, writing letters and asking friends and family. And that's, yeah. All right. Which one do I prefer, reselling or real estate? Both. They're both great. Real estate, I see more as a better financial option if my leads continue from YouTube like they have. But reselling, I love the thrill of the hunt. I also love a little bit of the kind of the tedious work at times. So I like both, but they both have pros and cons, and they both have extreme pros and cons. So do you think you will quit reselling when you really start selling houses daily? I don't know anyone that sells houses daily. My market sells houses like 40 or 50 in a month, and that's between like 200 agents here. And I'm not kidding. I think there's 200 registered agents here, or licensed agents here, licensed active agents here. And like last month, I think it was 50 homes that sold. So we're a small rural area. So there's never going to be any daily houses. If it got to a point where I was selling consistently 2 to 3 houses on average each month, 24 to 36 houses a year. I mean, I don't know how I would juggle that. I mean, I would have to get help. I would probably get an agent to, I would get them to get the offer accepted, and then I'd pass it on to another agent and I'd split my commission or something. I'm not going to turn down real estate people right now, but I did get frazzled when I had the 3 escrows at once, because that was hard to juggle with YouTube and reselling. And, you know, I have to be realistic with myself. So, but yeah, so I don't ever plan on being full-time with real estate, and I don't plan on quitting reselling. That's never been in the works. And I like juggling the 3. I think, as I mentioned in a recent video, I just need to figure out how to juggle it realistically and not get in over my head, and just give myself the grace. Like, if I have 3 escrows, I need to give myself the grace that I am just not going to thrift or list as much, and that is going to be okay. And I don't need to try and do more than I can do. All right, name your school for real estate or recommendation. So it depends on your state. If you're in California, I went through California Realty training, which is through Keller Williams, I think is the one that does it. I didn't have to use Keller Williams. I'm not signed with Keller Williams as my brokerage. I'm with Berkshire Hathaway. You can choose your brokerage, but it was an online school through LA. And yeah, I mean, it costs a few $1,000s to get started in real estate, and it takes a few months if you pass quickly to get your license. But I mean, it was really pretty easy compared to college. So if you could just focus for a few months and pass the test, you know, that part's pretty much the easy part. The harder part in real estate is getting leads if you don't have a source coming in. Would you ever consider buying rental properties? No, I don't really. That's like managing people is managing properties. I don't like managing. I've done that, and it takes a toll. Rentals, some people love that stuff. That's just a nightmare for me. We've got property management at my brokerage, some people that do it. And I've had some people call me and say, can you help me find an apartment? Do you help with property management? And I'm like, absolutely not, no. I'm here to help someone buy, and that's it. And if you have a real estate license, you can help people with property management, and you can help people with renting. It's just not something that I am interested in or do. So, all right, YouTube, a couple questions. What are pros and cons of having a YouTube channel? The pros, there's a creative aspect. So there's probably a pro and con to each thing I'm going to say. So maybe I'll divide it up that way. So the creative aspect is great. You can think about your videos, you can try new things, you can think about how you're going to edit them, thumbnails. The con of that is also you could waste a lot of time doing it. And I know some people who love to edit and who love to think about their thumbnails. I am let's make this as quick as possible. And I'm also just more in the mindset of like, I'm not making content to be artistic. That's not, I wouldn't be able to, because I'm not an artistic person in that same way. I'm a creative person. I like to think of new ideas, but I'm not artistic in that way. So the pros, I mean, I learned how to edit. I've learned how to do some things on my own. Like when I was working at startups, we had designer teams, like design teams. So when we wanted to come up with a marketing idea, we would have them come up with the creative aspect, you know? So I never had to do anything on my own. So it's kind of forced me out of my comfort zone, but it's also not my strength, and it's not what I'm passionate about. So, you know, there's also pros of it's great because you have a sense of community that you could potentially build. With that also comes some people that don't like you. And, you know, learning when you put yourself out online, you're going to get people who like you, hopefully, and a lot of people that don't like you. And, you know, I know everyone talks about thick skin, but I don't think anyone can prepare you for it. And, you know, fortunately, most people try YouTube and they can't stay consistent and they fall off before they really have to worry about it. But, you know, I mean, I had someone come and pick up something for free at my house one time that I posted on Nextdoor, and she watched my channel. And that was really odd, like being on my property and like being caught off guard and she was like super nice and said, "I'm not weird, I promise." And that really threw me for a loop. Or I was at the vet the other day and some woman stopped me. And I mean, this is in my small town, not even in thrift stores. And you know, she said she liked the channel. And so I don't think you can prepare for that. But most people I don't think get to a point where they're going to run into that very much. I think it's just, yeah, there are pros and cons to pretty much every aspect of YouTube. Like, okay, it would be great to make a lot of money, but what if all of a sudden your videos start tanking and you get stressed because you're not making the money you once did? It's not ever going to be really a consistent thing for most people. Also, getting monetized, you probably won't make that much money. You know, you could be monetized and work really hard to get monetized, and then all of a sudden you're making $20 a month, putting up 8 videos in that month. To have all the pros, you're still going to have a lot of cons that come with it. I think, everything's worth a shot for everyone, but it's kind of like the beauty channels, there's a lot of them to choose from. And I think it's probably harder today than it was 8-9 years ago to really get a huge following because there's just so much competition. I think there's a lot more competition in the reseller YouTuber space now versus 5 years ago. And so it's probably harder to grow. I'm not saying it was easier for us back 5 years ago, but there was just less people doing reselling content. And so less people to choose from. But we still have the stress of trying to maintain views. I mean, subscriber count doesn't matter at all. View count does, watch time does. And, I think some people, think it sounds great until they're there. I think some people think it's going to be easier than it is to grow and to be consistent. And, YouTube is a beast, but I do think YouTube's going to be around a long time. I can't stand short form content. It drives me nuts. I don't want to be moving around that quickly. I just want to put something on, have it playing in the background, and get some work done and not really think too much. So for me, I'm not saying that you can't do short form content and be successful, but I still think there's going to be a really great place for long form content for a while. Kind of like these long videos. And then the second question on YouTube is, how do you get views on YouTube? Man, oh man. I mean, you're probably not going to get really many views for the first 10, 20 videos you put up. I think there's some people that like to just, I'm going to go to this person's page and this video did really well for them, so I'm going to do that style of video. Yes, there's people that will copy like a Mr. Beast, and they can still, some of them grow some decent sized channels, but they're never going to grow past his channel because they're just copying his content and his ideas. I think it needs to be a combination of what does your audience want, but also throw in some new stuff to keep you somewhat original. And, most of the people I know that are successful on YouTube have tried original content and aren't just simply copying or doing what everyone is doing. But there's also a place for that. Like I tried not doing hauls for a little bit because I got burnt out on them. And then I was like, but that's kind of what our audience likes. They want to see what's picked up. And so, some of the content like hauls, there's times I like them and there's times I don't. And I've just accepted that that's just kind of part of reselling content, is showing what you've bought. But I also want to try some new things that maybe other people aren't doing to see if maybe those will do well and get some new viewers. But views on YouTube, it's a really gross game. And I don't use any metric system. I don't compare myself to other channels now. I don't even watch any other reselling channels for this exact reason, because I've met some people who spend an obnoxious amount of time comparing their channel to other channels and analyzing and assuming, this person bought subscribers and this person's buying views, and they just get way too obsessed with it, and it's really unhealthy. So I can understand wanting to grow something. Personally, I've gotten to a place where I'm like, I could be happy here for a while. And I want to focus on other things so that I don't burn out here. And I don't want to stress about metrics and what other people are doing and how I stack up, because not everything's honest out there. So then it's just, it gets in your head. So I would say consistency, try some original content, try some content that is expected in your niche, and be niched. Not everyone agrees with that, but if I watch you for reselling content, I probably don't care about your cleaning content. Come here, boo. You want to say hi? I know. Do you want to say hello? Well, thank you for joining. Where are you going? And that's just me. And I know some people say, well, if people are watching me by now, they must like me. It's why I have 3 channels. I don't put my personal stuff on here. I don't put my real estate stuff on here. I keep things separate because I know there are people that don't care about my personal life. And, so yeah, but not everyone agrees with that. And you could do a lifestyle channel, but I don't watch a lot of lifestyle channels, and those are few and far between that actually are successful. But I mean, if that's what you want to do, put your life on the internet, like truly, there's the dog again. You know, that might be a way to go, is be in the niche of just sharing your whole life. I personally need a break from the internet. So that has never been something I wanted. All right. Last section, personal. Are you doing okay? Balancing it all. Like, are you actually doing okay? We care. Thank you. And I know so many people care. And I think, you know, I did a video recently and part of it was well received and a couple of people didn't like it because some people don't want to ever hear the negative sides of us and just want us to be not puppets, but just show the positivity. And there are plenty of people out there that just show positivity. And then you get to know them, or I've gotten to know some of them, and, you know, they are not always positive. They maybe talk about other people and they obsess over things, and it's not really healthy. I think I show pretty accurately what I am and what my business is like online. And that's the pros and cons, and that's the highs and lows. And I did a video because ironically, I was trying to do a chatty work with me, but I didn't want to show receipts. I didn't want any of my personal information to show. So I was doing the work out here, but you couldn't see it. So then it looked like I was just chatting with a timer, but I was actually trying to work. But chatty work with me is, I'm probably going to mix them up soon, and they're going to be a little bit of a different format, which I'm excited about because I think you guys are going to like them more, and I think I'm going to have an easier time filming them. And mainly it's just going to be that I capture a number of comments and questions in my comment section, and I'm going to talk about those a variety in one video as opposed to just talk about one topic, because talking about one topic for 45 minutes is absurd. I also don't know if I really want to do too much of the personal stuff at the end, because I feel like I share more of my personal life on Instagram in the stories, and I feel like I have to sneeze. And yes, I sneezed, you know, when you, whatever. So yeah, I think probably it will be more of ongoing questions throughout the year, and maybe less of these Q&As and more just Q&As, like a chatty work with me each month. And I talk about a few different things, not really questions, but just topics that you guys bring up and I think are worth chatting about. So I just heard a noise and it sounded really weird. It's a propane tank filling up propane across the street for my neighbor. So, yeah. So, I mean, I think after that video, I was at a better place. But you know, I do try to keep things real, and I know not everyone's going to like that or appreciate certain things that I say or disagree with certain things I say. But I think most of the feedback of that was people do need to know that it's okay if you burn out. And, I won't do receipts again, because I think chatty work with me, you actually want to see the work and not just me sitting here. But yeah, I mean, that's an example of like you're learning, constantly learning doing this. And, you know, I think I am doing okay now. I think, you know, last year was a bit of a beast for me with a lot of things, personal and work related. And I think it kind of caught up to me after the holidays. And, you know, I was trying to be honest about it. So yeah, but I am, you know, I'm doing pretty good. Right now I don't have any escrows and I'm really enjoying a little bit of the break, but I am hoping that people call me. I've got a couple people that I'm, you know, talking to about trying to get them to see some houses, and the weather's getting nicer, which is great, but you know, there's no guarantee with real estate. I am getting my air conditioner. I am getting a new roof. All of that needs to be paid for. So again, I do need some home sales, but yeah, I think overall, I'm doing okay. There's definitely some things that I still want to work on. I'm still trying to figure out. And, you know, some of that is trying to get out a little bit more, but being a little bit, it's hard when I don't live near too much. Part of it is, you know, trying to socialize a little bit more, but then it's like, it's been so cold and rainy and snowy, and that's like the last thing you want to do. So I'm really hoping for the nicer weather and getting out a little bit more. And yeah, so, all right. Will Luna ever have a four-legged buddy to hang out with? Yes and no. I mean, I don't know. One dog is a lot. And it's because I want to be a good dog owner. I want to actually take her on walks all the time. I actually want to, you know, she's a friend. She's a buddy. So, you know, right now she's sitting outside enjoying the sunshine, and she's been enjoying that after some long, wet, snowy, rainy days. And so, you know, I mean, yeah, I think a second dog is more expensive. not only more expensive with like food and vet bills and all of that stuff, but also like daycare. I would have to pay for two dogs. So there's a financial aspect to it. Mostly I wanted a buddy and force me to get out. And, I've always liked animals, but I don't really know the benefit of having two dogs other than she would have a buddy. But I mean, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I've thought about it. I've dabbled in the idea, especially now that I have the fence finished, because then it's like they really could run around. But I don't think she would take well to another dog. She does not like new dogs. And I also, again, it's a lot to manage. Like what happens when I go car camping? I only have one spot for one dog, So there's a lot of different factors that play into it. But mostly it's a financial reason. It's also, lifestyle. So, but never say never. Okay, the two questions I get the most every time I do this, and I'm totally fine with people asking because I know I'm curious when I watch other YouTubers. Am I dating anyone? Do I have a significant other? So that's the first question, or combo of questions. Dating has just been interesting. So in this area, but any area. So I have dated some people in the last year, and I will say this. I am the type that I don't sit around and wait for having someone to go do things. So they have to be pretty awesome and pretty great for me to want to continue dating them. So if I get any inkling that they're not a good fit, I'm done. I was raised a certain way of just like not waiting for someone to do something, to kind of have a little bit of that independence. So like if I want to go to dinner, I'll go to dinner by myself. If I want to go to a movie, I'll go to a movie by myself. If I want to travel somewhere, I'll travel by myself. I know that's not everyone's comfort zone. I know some people prefer to have a partner. I get annoyed by people, and that just is being honest. And I have just met some real doozies. First off, I've learned my lesson that I don't really want to date anyone in my small town, because then you run into them or you see them all the time. And also, I just don't think that there's a lot of good options near me. I've learned from experience that I probably don't want to date someone with kids. And it's not to say people with kids are bad. It's just I've learned that there are other things involved that, it has not been a good option for me. And so I kind of ruled that out. And that really bumps out most of the people in my area, or rules out most of the people in my area. And then we're dealing with, okay, now I'm dealing with an hour to 2 hours from anyone that I might meet. So I do try to go out, like when I'm going thrifting, and I'll try and sit at certain restaurants where I can talk to people and mingle. And I've met some people that way. The apps are there. What a nightmare. If you haven't tried them, I mean, they're good and bad. I mean, it is fun. It is fun that I've got freedom to kind of go do whatever. But it is also turned into a little bit of a psychological mess, because, you could be swiping on, 500 guys in one night, and you finally swipe right on one of them or two of them. And that you message both of them, and then you'll get a response from one, and then their conversation just falls off because they don't ask any questions, and so it's a lot of work. But a lot of my problem is I don't have an easy way to just go meet up, because I am farther away from anyone that I would even consider or talk to. So, and then the people I've met in person, I mean, do you want to hear about a couple of them without naming any names? Oh my gosh. So none of these were like anything significant. So most of them don't even know I have YouTube, because I don't share that for quite some time. But one of them, really smart, not my type, but I'm trying to be open-minded. He didn't have kids. He didn't have anything like that, but he was struggling with things personally. And, and he was honest and transparent about it. But I realized after we hung out multiple times in a couple months that I realized he was actually never making plans. But he was always saying yes to everything. Like he was game for everything. But I kind of called him out on it one time. I was like, it just doesn't seem like you're, and I know certain personality types are not great in certain things, but I do think that there needs to be some balance, and there needs to be some effort on both sides, especially in the beginning. And so, yeah, he was I really like intelligence, but there needs to be some attraction, so again, that rules out most. But yeah, So he was really nice, and physically he wasn't the type I typically go for, but because he was super smart and actually really great at communication, at least on, text and everything. But yeah, he was working through things with his family and with his job. He was really unhappy and trying to think of a different change. But there was a moment where he was looking for a change and it was moving away. And there was no we had been hanging out for about a month and there was no comment of oh, but there was no, it wasn't going to work. He was dealing with too much. Let's see, there was another guy that I met. He lived down in LA and ironically he had kids, but they were older. So I was like, oh, okay. Cause I have dated guys with younger kids and that just has not worked out for me because I won't meet the kids. I just won't. I don't want them to get involved unless we're super serious. And, so I met a guy and he had older kids, teenage kids. Well, then we hung out multiple times, but distance wise, I don't go to LA all that much. And what I realized was all he wanted to do was go out to shows. That's all he wanted to do. Live music shows. I like a good live music show, but I also want to do other things. And we did, it was always, so anyways, what happened there was, I kind of fell off, a little bit, I don't know. I didn't reply for a couple weeks. And then I realized my dad got sick and then I really didn't say anything. And then I realized 2 months had gone by. And so I was just, bored one night and sad and, grieving. And so I sent him a message. I was like, hey, I'm so sorry. I never responded. My dad got sick and, then he ended up passing away and he's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Well, do you feel like coming down for a show sometime? It was such poor timing of wording. Plus he never wanted to come up here. And I was always just yeah. So there's things like that happen where he was a nice guy and we had some fun, but let's see. Those are kind of the two of the more recent ones, but yeah. And then there's you'll meet some and maybe hang out with them once or hang out with them twice. And then you're like, oh no, there was a guy that I hung out with twice, and it was the second time I hung out with him that I realized he had never been on a plane, and he was never planning on going on a plane. And I'm like, I don't know how this would work because I actually like to travel, and I have gone to 25 countries. Not to say someone has to go be a crazy international traveler to be a good fit for me, but if you're never going to get on a plane, yeah. And again, he lived farther, so there's all these types of things that play into it. Plus I'm busy. Plus last year was not really the year where I was really too focused on that. It was more focused on family and just trying to pick myself back up and trying to start real estate and stuff like that. But I try, but I am picky, and I think it's good to be picky because I'm going to go and live my life regardless if someone's there. And, yeah. But the second question that I always get is, do I plan on having kids in the future? I'm 40. I'm turning 41 in a month. And I don't care about this birthday. The last birthday, whatever. Birthdays have never been a big thing. But I'm getting close to aging out of that prospect. Plus it was never something I really wanted. The only time I ever really wanted kids was when I was in a relationship and we talked about it, because I think that's a common thing you should address in relationships. And I was open-minded to it. And I'm still not completely never say never is kind of my mindset. But at this point, I don't think it's going to happen. And I think that's okay. I think people can choose to have them and people can choose to not have them, and both can equally have really great lives. And I have some friends who've been really transparent and saying they kind of, in a very subtle way, regret having kids. And I think there's people that regret not having kids. And I don't think it's a one size fits all. But I'm happy when other people really like having kids. I had a great relationship with my parents, have a great relationship with my mom still, and had a wonderful relationship with my dad. And, I really lucked out with the family thing. We're all very close. And, but yeah, I don't think that is what creates happiness. And, there's research that actually says, but either way, if you have kids and you're happy with kids and you wanted kids, I think that's great. If you don't have kids, aren't sure if you want them. There's no pressure. I know there's a biological clock, but there's some people that are adopting in their 50s, and that's probably not something I would ever do, but to each their own. I think we're all on our own journey, and I think life is evolving and changing. And, I've done a lot of cool things in my life that I don't know. So it's one of those things that's hard to answer. These are those uncomfortable questions because I never want anyone else to feel like my way is the only way, or I think mine's the best way for me. And honestly, I mean, I just can't fathom. I really like being an aunt. I really like being a sister. I like being a daughter. I like being a friend. I like having a dog as a little buddy. But that's probably going to be the extent of it. And yeah, so, okay, Courtney, stop rambling. All right, do I speak Spanish? No, my last name is Czechoslovakian. I'm assuming you think that I'm of Spanish-speaking descent of some type because of my last name. Common mistake. Understand it. Taco Bell. Thank you. It is a Spanish word, but it is a Czechoslovakian or Czech last name. And I took Spanish a couple years in high school, and if I'm there, I can like sometimes read a little bit, but no, I do not speak Spanish. What keeps me up at night? I mean, I shared that in kind of the last video, just trying to balance it out. But I mean, I sleep very well. I get a lot of sleep. I don't wake up with an alarm for the most part, unless I have to go thrifting early. And yeah, so not much. I do not have a problem sleeping. How is Luna enjoying her fence? Best thing ever. Can't believe we waited this long. She has her morning routine where she spends like a solid hour sniffing around, digging up gophers. She's got her whole routine now, and like she's laying outside. I don't have to worry about her being on a leash. She does her guard dog duties when she sees critters, the wildlife, keep outside of the fence. She wants to keep them outside of the fence. So it's the best thing ever. Best money I ever spent. I could have renovated my kitchen with the amount I spent on this fence in total, but I probably will always have a dog here. And so a fence was really important. But they're expensive. All right. Besides reselling, what other content do I like to watch on YouTube? I'm trying to think. I should pull up my YouTube to see who pops up. Just some of the, I like watching the Doctorly. They're two guys, they're dermatologists. I like watching them. I like watching cooking channels. So that could be, a variety of things. Hot Ones I apparently watch at times. Huberman Lab, which I've already talked about. He's got a podcast. I love to watch The Problem with Jon Stewart. Their Last Week Tonight, which is with John Oliver, because I don't have cable. So they're the guys that Pod Saves America, love watching them on YouTube. So I guess I watch some political stuff as well. Bon Appetit, that's one of my favorite channels for food stuff. So yeah, I just got into something called The Diary of a CEO. He's a podcaster. But yeah, I mean, J. Kenji Lopez Alt. I love his food channel. So I could go on and on. But yeah, I mean, I don't watch a lot of reselling content. And partly I think that's for my mental health I want to be supportive. I try to thumbs up people. But I don't want to copy people's content. I also don't want to be in the comparison game. And it's also not something that I'm really learning at this point. And I also want to break from it. But there's still a couple resellers that I support, and they know who they are, and I'll check in and watch their content, leave comments and stuff like that. But for the most part, most of the content I watch is not reselling because I want a break from whatever. All right. Did I call my roof company about the roof? And why did I not use homeowners insurance? This was one of the most common things I got on a video where I talked about my roof issues. So why did I not use homeowners insurance? Homeowners insurance is almost impossible in a high fire risk area in California. In fact, the majority of people in my area have to use something called a California Fair Plan for fire and then have a second insurance policy for everything else at the home. And I have been kicked off my homeowners insurance for fire risk, not a fire, every single year I've been here. So every year I have to get a new homeowner's insurance policy. And I did file a claim when I had a slab leak and I had to replace pipes. I shouldn't have, because every time I call an insurance company, they bring that up and it makes it harder to get insurance. But so California, I mean, unless you absolutely have to use your homeowner's insurance, it's kind of a nightmare. It will make it harder for you to keep that insurance or get new insurance. And so yes, insurance is there for a reason, but I also live in a high fire risk area. So catch 22, but I did find some really good insurance this year and I just renewed, but I still wouldn't file a claim unless it was absolutely necessary. Plus my roof isn't new. It's also, yes, shingles fall off in wind, but it's not a new roof. So they would look at the age and they would determine that it's an age thing, not anything like that. But the new roof I'm getting has a 50-year warranty, which is kind of crazy, but it is a little bit more to go from the 30-year to the 50-year. And it does have some wind protection, and it's, yeah. So, you know, what I've learned is you might live in a state where you don't have to deal with the fire issue, and you've never had to lose your homeowner's insurance. I deal with a lot of clients who they've been insured by companies for the last 30 years and they can't get insurance with them because most companies just don't want to insure here because of the payouts with big fires. So because of that, it's lucky to get a homeowner's insurance, lucky to keep it. Try not to use it unless absolutely necessary. That's what I've learned. The rain and snow this year has been significant. So it's just caused more stress on the roof, and there's been leaks, and it's been not my favorite thing, but it's part of life and I'm just trying my best. So, all right, 2 last questions. These are super random, but I brought props. My favorite candle. Someone wanted to know my favorite candle. I have 2 favorites. This is more my fall winter favorite candle, Leaves by Bath & Body Works. I love the scent. I don't know why I got the small guy because I don't, yeah, but, yep. Well, it smells really strong right here, but when it burns, it just smells so lovely. It's not just Leaves for fall, but I use this in winter as well. And so that's Bath & Body Works, cheap. This, I think, is the Volcano Candle by Anthropologie, except it doesn't say it on the bottom, but I'm pretty sure, oh, it says Volcano. Yeah, the Volcano Candle by Anthropologie is my spring summer candle favorite. So, and I don't steer clear too much. I have made the mistake of buying different candles that are different scents and then I never use them and then they sit in my candle cabinet and I just like 2 candles. So, I mean, I'll get some candles that are like fresh scent for the bathroom and stuff like that, but these are my go-to if I had to pick 2. And then the last question, someone else, what shampoo and conditioner do I use? I get these questions a lot. I currently, for a long time, have been using Dove. I did try a Kirkland shampoo and conditioner recently and I went through the bottles, but I did not like it. I am going to try something new, which was like a Garnier. It was like a clean, I don't know. No, maybe it wasn't Garnier. Anyway, someone recommended something. I don't like spending too much on certain items like that goes very quickly. I use a lot of shampoo and conditioner. I mean, I only wash my hair a couple times a week, but I have a lot of hair, so I use a lot of product. And you know, so these are things that I will never spend money on. I don't spend a lot of money on most hair care. Hairspray, don't spend a lot of money on it. Dry shampoo, don't spend a lot of money on it. Any of my hair stuff, I just don't spend a lot of money on it because it's not going to do much. My hair's pretty easy as is. So if I had some issue, you know, like many people do, the only thing I think I've thought about is like occasionally I'll have dandruff and I've wanted to try some dandruff shampoos, but that's only like, oh, if you don't wash your hair for 5 days, it's probably going to get a little flaky. So it's more my own doing. But yeah, Dove is probably the most common one that I use. I like the coconut scent, hydration. So that's it. That's my very long Q&A. I answered all the questions. I will, you know, I only do these based on when I ask, but I will probably do some chatty work with me's based off of more reselling content on my comment section. So if you guys, moving forward, leave some interesting questions or comments around reselling on any of my videos, I might put those up on some chatty work with me's. But I always appreciate you guys watching. I need to edit some of this out because this is way too long of a video, but I'll be back with another video soon. So I'll see you then. Be sure to hit the thumbs up. Bye.